On Your Side Tonight continues now. Good evening and thank you so much for staying with us here at 7:30. I'm John Carter. Jamie Bull has the night off. This week, we've taken a closer look at crime and punishment at its most severe. We've explored the raw reality of death row from the unique perspective of the former director of the South Carolina Department of Corrections. And Jamie Bull sat down with John Osmond from his office in Greenville. We learned he oversaw the executions of 14 men during his tenure. Many waived their right to appeal. Osmond shared how time in prison quickly alters a man's character.
There are a few anomalies, but very few. People age out of crime. And nowhere do people age out of crime more so than in prison. Prison takes about 1.3 years off your life for every year you serve.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's studies to prove that too.
Last year, more than 170 men lived on death row in Carolina prisons. And in South Carolina, there's no legal way to carry out their executions because the lethal drug needed ran out 10 years ago. But now, in a timely update to our conversation, discussion has again sparked that could restart lethal injections in South Carolina, and it's likely to soon be headed to the governor's desk. WBTV State House reporter Mary Green brings us the story.
Earlier this year, state senators passed what's known as a SHIELD law bill. And Wednesday, the House of Representatives approved that bill in a vote largely along party lines. It could allow South Carolina to begin carrying out executions for the first time since 2011. South Carolina has 3 methods of executing convicted inmates sentenced to die: firing squad, electric chair, and lethal injection. The firing squad and electric chair are currently on hold, pending a court review into their legality. And the state says it can't carry out lethal injections because it hasn't been able to get the drugs it needs to do that since its batch expired a decade ago. This bill, called a SHIELD law, would keep drug manufacturers and pharmacies' identities hidden from public disclosure if they sell South Carolina lethal injection drugs.
Families of the victims cannot get closure because, notwithstanding the fact that a sentence of execution has been handed down, we are unable to carry that out.
The director of the state's prison system has said this bill wouldn't guarantee South Carolina would be able to obtain the drugs, but without it, discussions are impossible. Opponents argue enacting this would cloud government transparency, even keeping lawmakers themselves from knowing who the state is working with and how much money is going toward it.
We're doing more than just allowing the acquisition of drugs to administer this penalty. We're giving away any oversight that the agency has over this process and essentially just letting it all be done in the dark. Don't tell us about it. We don't want to know us about it. Just bring out a dead body.
Both the bill and the amendment do require the state's 2 financial offices to work with the Department of Corrections so that the records are kept in a de-identified condition.
House members amended the bill Wednesday to impose criminal penalties of up to 3 years in prison for people who violate this law. And they added an explicit ban on members of the legislature, their immediate family, or businesses with which they're associated from providing the drugs or medical supplies needed to carry out executions.
I want to make sure that none of us can profit from this SHIELD law that we're about to pass.
The House and Senate versions of this bill are slightly different, so the 2 chambers will have to work out a compromise to send to the governor. I spoke with the author of this bill, Senator Greg Hembry, on Wednesday, and he told me he's optimistic they'll be able to reach an agreement. Reporting from the State House, I'm Mary Green.
And South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster has repeatedly called on the General Assembly to pass a SHIELD law, most recently this year. In a statement, a spokesperson for the governor says today's vote is a great step toward finally giving these grieving families the long overdue closure they are owed by law.